welcome to Butterflies of Wisdom, everyone, and happy July 4th. Even though you guys will be hearing this on Wednesday, I still want to say happy July 4th. You may be recovering from the July 4th festivities. Let's hope so. And the reason why we're doing this today is because you not only have me, you have Kim, but Kim is from Canada, so of course she celebrates Canadian Canada Day, but she doesn't celebrate July 4th. So you may be surprised that I'm actually doing an interview on July 4th, but that's the way we roll, Kim and I. So without further ado, I'm going to let Miss Kim take it away.
Well, thank you so much, Wynn. I'm so excited to be here. I am the leading sales coach for entrepreneurs and solopreneurs. I have helped individuals really get out of their current mindset when it comes to building their business, understand that sales is actually something that we can serve other people, not something that we do to other people, but in a way that it's our gift in whatever our product or service is, and how we communicate that in passionate ways, really reinforcing those relationships. I've been doing this for a couple of years after a short sabbatical of traveling around the world and working in corporate sales, and thank you so much for having me.
Well, you're welcome. And if you don't mind me asking, why did you take the leap from corporate sales to solo entrepreneurship?
Yeah, well, it was after working 9 years in corporate sales. I was doing quite well with that. I woke up one day and I realized, this is it. Is this really the life that I want to create for myself? I could already see the writing on the wall. I could see essentially the corporate ladder and the projection that was available to me. But there was something in me that wasn't feeling completely fulfilled. And when I woke up that one morning, I thought, you know what, I really need to do something completely different. I wanted to really live this life of, kind of an early retirement, so to say. Why was I waiting until I was retired before I could really do any significant travel? Why was I waiting to do, the things that I really wanted to do? And so in that short period of time, I decided, you know what, that was it. I wanted to complete all that. So I quit my job. I had sold my house and I backpacked around the world in that amount of time, writing every single day, really asking myself deeper questions on what was it that I really wanted to do with my life. And the solution that I came back with was wasn't that I didn't like sales. It wasn't that I disliked what I was doing. It's that I wasn't feeling like what I was completing was helping anybody specifically. I felt like I was building the bottom line of a big company and not living this life that an individual was seeing their company and their life and family grow. And that's what I wanted to be able to do. So I decided I was going to start my own business, teaching this, speaking about it, writing about it. And over the last 2 years, it's really grown into something that's touched my heart, but really affected the lives of so many others.
Well, good for you. And I snuck on your website to look for your phone number, actually, and I noticed you have not one, not two, but 3 books. Is that correct?
Yeah, my third book it's not quite released just yet. It's just in the final stages of some edits and everything. But yes, it will be released later on this year. And I'm very excited about that because it's a little bit of difference from my first 2 books. The first 2 books were written entirely about the travel experience of, backpacking solo 17 countries. And this one will be coming up, and this will be really about the whole idea of getting back into the relationship side of business. A lot of people believe that social media is this new form of communication, and I definitely believe that it has its place. and it has the opportunity to start creating connections. But I don't feel that social media can ever really replace what we have right here, this voice to voice, this, conversation where I want to get back into the whole mindset of people that 15 minutes on the phone or 20 minutes on the phone can actually build something so much greater than a series of emails or, a bunch of liking of people's, Facebook status posts.
I completely agree. I definitely agree. And Kim, can I make a suggestion for your book?
Absolutely.
Because it's about building trust factors in your book, a lot of disabled people can't physically hold a book. And a lot of people like audiobooks. So here's my suggestion. You put it on audiobook. And so that way you can reach a bigger audience.
Well, thank you. And actually, that's going to be one of my goals in the next little while. It's just, we run into the whole time, the time conundrum, right? There's, less time than we want to be able to do that. But that is definitely the intention. So thank you so much for that suggestion. I love it.
Well, you're welcome. And that goes for anyone who's listening, who's writing a book. Put it on audio. I am working on my 8th, 9th, and 10th book all at the same time. Don't ask, I'm a little bit of a crazy woman. And I'm going to put all of those books on audio tape, except for one that I don't have the rights to, although I could ask the person who has the rights to if she can stick it on audio tape. But that being said, I have a huge announcement for you guys on Thursday. But enough about me and audio tapes and audio books. I want to ask Kim, what is her favorite place she traveled to?
Oh, that's such a tough question because every place was very much near and dear to my heart. I would definitely go back to Vietnam. I loved the country. I thought everybody there was in love with this whole concept of love. And the food was fresh. The beaches were beautiful. It was everything about it I absolutely loved.
Now, when you were backpacking all around the world solo as a woman, did you ever feel scared?
Oh, absolutely. But I mean, don't get me wrong. It's, I think oftentimes we believe that the world is a scarier place than it actually is. I live in Calgary, Canada, and there's been times where, I'll be out a night with, my girlfriends back in my early 20s, and I probably walked home from the bar feeling a little bit scared then too. Yeah. There was a time when I was actually in Cambodia where I had hired a personal driver to take me to this place called Kratchi, where it's known for these river dolphins, these freshwater dolphins, and they kind of look like dolphins, but they're not really. They actually have like these really bumpy backsides. And I hired this driver, and he drove me for 4 hours from Phnom Penh to Kratchi. And as we're driving along, the road changes from, actually paved road to, this kind of weird red gravel road. And then from there, you're really driving through kind of this jungle town. And during that point in time, I realized I didn't have access to a cell phone. Nobody really knew where I was. And I started thinking, very scary thoughts for my life. I thought, at any given time, this guy could pull over, steal my backpack, all my money and everything, and I would be left in the middle of Cambodia, not speaking the language, not knowing, how to even communicate my way back home. And that was kind of a wake-up moment for myself. But, I thankfully, I put faith into, humanity, and, he was really so gracious and so thoughtful about it. It wasn't really the smartest move for me to do, but in hindsight, I was glad that I had done that because I still had made it to see these incredible river dolphins that I think only a handful of people in the world have ever seen.
Well, isn't that cool? But at the same time, you're like, should I be really doing this in a third world country?
Yeah, absolutely. I was afraid that, you know, if I told my mom what I was doing, she would probably have slapped me silly.
Oh, yeah. Yes, nothing can be like that. Yeah. So Kim, what is your favorite podcast if you have one?
I do actually. You know what? It's a fairly new podcast. So I mean, I've been hosting my own podcast for a little while. I've actually taken a recent hiatus from recording it because I gave birth to a little baby boy in February, and I've been getting back into work.
Congratulations on that.
Thank you very much. Yeah, he's 4.5 months old right now, and I got very itchy to get back to work. In Canada, we're actually given a whole year of maternity leave off, either maternity or paternity. So both the mother and or the father at any given time can take a full year off. And as wonderful as that is for myself, I only look at that as something that, you know, you have the option to, but it wasn't for me. And so we hired a nanny, but in the meantime, as I'm going back and building the business up again, I had to take a hiatus from that. But I do love listening to Noah Kagan's brand new podcast. He actually launched it earlier this year. And Noah Kagan is, are you familiar with who he is?
Yes, I have heard his podcast.
Yeah, fantastic.
I'm actually a podcast junkie, and
oh, wonderful.
You guys, I actually do listen to Noah Kagan's podcast, and I like it too. I haven't resubscribed to it. I actually got rid of Apple Podcast on my phone, and so now I'm using Stitcher, which is a lot easier, and so now I have to resubscribe to everything, but all resubscribe to Noah Kagan because he's just fascinating what he says and what he's trying to teach.
Yes. Yeah, and I really, number one, I love him because he has so much business experience, right? I mean, he worked for Mint, he worked for Facebook, right? He's one of the original people that was with the Facebook team. I mean, he was fired from Facebook, which is kind of funny. And yet he goes ahead and he creates this wonderful company, AppSumo, and has really, you know, turned it from, you know, bootstrapping, you know, making $30,000 a year for the first couple of years to now it being worth, I believe, almost shy of $10 million. And he's an authentic version of what you would expect somebody who's in a position like that to truly be. I subscribe to his emails and listening to his podcast. I feel like he gives a lot of really fantastic nuggets. He doesn't touch on superficial. He actually really drives into tough questions, and I love that about Noah.
I do too. He just drives into, okay, what are we doing here? How do we do this? So my next question to you is, what is your favorite book? It doesn't have to be a business book. It just has to be a book that you go time and time again.
So my absolute favorite book then would be The Alchemist by Paulo Coelho. I love that book. I've read it 3 or 4 times now. It's a very simple read. If you haven't read it, I think it's like 187 pages. You can easily crush it in a couple hours. But it is one of the most well-printed books of all time. And I find that whenever I become a little bit lost in my journey, I turn to that book, and it always reminds me time and again that it's never about the destination. It is about the entire journey. And as long as we continue to move forward, you will always get to exactly where you're supposed to be at any given time.
Well, that's a terrific book, and I presume you guys can find that on Amazon.
Oh, yeah, it's definitely one of the most, I think there's something like 10 million copies produced or something. It's quite a popular book.
Yeah. So what has been your favorite entrepreneurial moment in all this? Or we can go back to motherhood.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there is some big balances with motherhood and being an entrepreneur. It's a lot different than when you're working and you have motherhood, I believe. Only because at the end of the day, with many jobs, the 9 to 5 ends and you're home and then you're working. When you're an entrepreneur, I mean, I have a wonderful flexibility because, for instance, it was last week we were in a little bit of a heat wave. In Celsius, I mean, it hit 30 degrees, which is probably close to, 100 degrees in Fahrenheit. And so I was left home or left the office at 3 o'clock in the afternoon because I thought, this would be a great time to take, my boy to the spray park. I also have a stepson who's 5 years old. I came home and the nanny and the 5-year-old and my little baby, we all walked over to the spray park and played. And that's kind of the glorification of being an entrepreneur and having that freedom. On the flip side, that also means that on, a Saturday morning, I'm still waking up at, 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock in the morning to do writing or typing or whatever else that needs to be done for the business. So there's a fine balancing act. But my personal best moment in the entrepreneurial journey was actually being recently selected to speak at a massive sales and marketing conference in Boston. And the keynote for that presentation is actually going to be Michelle Obama. So I was over the moon to find that out because, yes, I know, right?
Yes.
So when I found that out, I was over the moon because I essentially get to say that, I get to be in the same presence and share the same stage as Michelle Obama.
Well, that leads me to my next question. And if you had to be educated by anyone inside or outside your field, who would it be?
Oh, I'm going to choose someone really big. I would definitely choose Oprah. I'm a massive fan of Oprah Winfrey. I think she has done phenomenal things. And for somebody who was originally told that she couldn't, she said, you know what, I will show you. And right from the very beginning, becoming a TV anchor all the way to hosting a show that wasn't around your typical, at the time, daytime talk show gossip. She really wanted to create something that was going to lift people up and inspire them, not, in a way that was going to promote the negativity that was already occurring in the world. And she continues to, really step outside when people say, you can't start your own network. And she goes, I'll show you. And you can't have shows that are going to, only address, really positive things. People want to see the negative. And she says, I'll show you. Those are the things that I love about Oprah. And I would, if I had, 30 minutes with her to pick her brain, to have her teach me everything that she knows, that's who I would pick.
And if you had the opportunity to pick Oprah's brain, what would be one question you would ask her?
I would I would probably ask her something a little bit selfish. I would ask her, how was she able to get some of the most influential people to be on her side? And I think that, when we as entrepreneurs, when we're able to create influence with influence, I think that really starts to spread more boundaries. Right. Oftentimes we, as entrepreneurs, will sometimes believe that, we'll do it ourselves and we're going to work really hard. And if we work really hard, the things will come. And that's not necessarily the case. It comes back to the old adage, it's not what you know, it's who you know. And when we are able to connect with people that are of higher influence than us, we become associated with them. So if I was able to find out, how she was able to make those connections immediately, what were some of her greatest connections that she was able to make, and, what would she share about that, that would be, for me, one of the biggest takeaways.
Well, that is good, cool that you want to speak to Oprah, and Oprah's not Canadian either. She's U.S., but she had the most syndicated top TV show known to man, other than Good Morning America and the Today Show. So, okay. what is your favorite technology tool?
My favorite technology tool. It would probably have to be some of the biggest apps that I use on my phone. Right now, I mean, I've been a massive fan of Evernote for a long time, and I still use that. But I am so ingrained right now with Google Docs. That has become one of my biggest apps. Because there's a lot of things you can do. I love the idea that I use both Google Docs on my computer as well as my phone, especially with book writing. When I have a few moments when I think of, how else to incorporate or maybe a new subtitle, I can really quickly add that in Google Docs. One of my other things is actually the speech-to-text feature that Google Docs has, which gives me the opportunity where, perhaps I'm even driving and I can't actually go ahead and type some of my ideas, but I can actually set up speech to text and be able to write everything in there in the same way so that I'm actually making the most of my time.
I use Siri to write my books, and I'm a big fan of Google Docs. Big fan of Google Docs because you write something on a computer or iPad, and it automatically transfers over to your phone.
Yes.
So that's my big discovery nowadays. And so, Kim, where can people find you, and how can people get a hold of you?
Yeah, so the best place to get a hold of me is my website, which is kimorlesky.com. That's KIMORLESKY.com. It's the same two words actually on all of my social medias, whether that's Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. I'm a massive fan of Twitter in terms of social media.
Yeah. So, Kim, now you get to turn the mic on yourself and ask me a couple questions before we have to end this interview.
Yeah. So, I would love to hear from you, Wynn. What book would you recommend to somebody that is starting out in their own business?
In their own business? Well, I hate to be biased, but go check out my book, I Come a Win, on Kindle, and it's going to be released in paperback. I'm working on making a new version of it as we record this interview. And so go check out I Come a Win. It's not really a business book, although it's a memoir about myself having cerebral palsy, but I should really focus on writing a business book about having a business and solo entrepreneurship with a disability. So, Kim, you gave me that idea, and I think that's going to be in the next couple of years that I write this book that we'll see.
Wonderful. That's exciting. I look forward to it.
Yeah.
All right. And I guess I have one more question I get to ask you. Is that right?
Yep.
Yeah. So I would love to know, if there was one thing you could teach anybody about cerebral palsy, what would that be?
I am sorry to get on this tangent, but my fan base knows this by now. Don't judge a book by its cover. Don't judge a book by its cover. A lot of people think we're dummies. We're dummies with cerebral palsy. We're dummies with any disability, but we can hold a conversation like the best of them. So I would say don't judge a book by its cover.
Wonderful. And I truly believe in that as well. Right? There's a lot to learn, and obviously your listeners are already fully invested in that and how much you've been able to teach them.
And as I said, please share this podcast out with anyone you know, that's including on Kim's network. When I hand her the link, she knows the rules by now. And I want everyone to share this podcast out. This podcast could be found in Stitcher, Apple Podcast, all over the place. So, for the exception of SoundCloud, you guys, it's no longer on SoundCloud. I did that because I would get thoughts on my podcast. So that's why. So it can be found all over the place. And so please, please, please subscribe and please, please, please share this podcast out. And then I would love to thank Kim for coming on today and sharing her wisdom and knowledge. And I hope that you enjoyed another fabulous episode. This podcast has been sponsored by Grace by Grit. Grace by Grit is a clothing line out of California, and they're giving you guys 20% off when you type in the code EXO Butterflies. And I appreciate Kim's wisdom today, and happy Canada Day, and happy post-Canada Day, I should say, and then happy 4th of July when you guys are listening to this, and happy post-4th of July when you guys are actually listening to this. So I will catch you guys later, and I hope you guys enjoyed another fabulous episode. Thank you.
Thank you very much for having me.